Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Raptor X here with Good Clean Gaming RX, and today's just going to be a video going over the latest patch notes. Star Citizen Alpha 3.23 has been released to the live environment, and so I'm going to go over the patch notes quickly today. Basically, the TLDR, first of all, covering the most of the features, and then we'll actually go over each of the individual ones and kind of get a little deeper into the patch notes. So. To start off with, embark on your next great adventure. Alpha 3.23 is one of our most expansive and game-changing releases to date that adds life, excitement, and usability improvements throughout the vast, persistent universe. From the introduction of the very first wildlife across Stanton's planets to the Master Modes feature that streamlines vehicle control and ship combat, Alpha 3.23 elevates the Star Citizen universe to its most immersive and engaging height yet. This release also marks a significant milestone toward the upcoming Pyro system, laying the groundwork and adding many of the front and back end necessities that will empower players to leap to the new star system in the next patch release. So, some good news there. That seems to hint that we may just be getting 4.0 in the next one. There is the trailer that you can get on the website here. I'm not going to play that in this one. It's worth a watch. But just to avoid any sort of copyright issues or whatever, you guys can watch that one. I'll post a link down in the description. So we've got the untamed wildlife. We now have the Copion and Marok. The Copion are these little cat dog sort of looking creatures. They hunt in packs, sometimes 10 to 14 of them. They are faster than the player character, and so you want to take them out before they catch up to you because they can kill you pretty quickly. We've also got industrial playgrounds, so we've got the new distribution centers are being put in. So far, I know of 2 of them, but I believe they've put several of them throughout the verse. The 2 that I know of, one is on Hurston and the other is on Microtech. They've added the new character customizer, allowing you to get in and really customize your character with some finer detail. The skin maps have been changed, a lot of new hairstyles. There's a new hair physics engine and shader. Really good job on this. It looks excellent, and you get a large selection of new characters that you can create. Master modes has been put in, and so combat has changed up significantly with that. Tricording has essentially been eliminated now. And you have a couple of different flight modes now, which has kind of split combat and navigation between nav mode and SCM mode, or standard combat maneuvers mode. And so basically that kind of locks your speed down to around 250 to 300 without boost, and up to about 500 with boost. And all of your combat stuff takes place within SCM mode, because that's the only spot that your guns, missiles, and shields will actually work and recharge. Then they've added some new improvements to EVA. They've added EVA Tier 2. So now whenever you are in a 0G environment, you now fly around like Iron Man or Superman pose instead of the NASA upright pose. Which makes navigating confined spaces and just transitioning from 0G to gravity environments much easier. And they now have a smooth animation to go from this pose here over to the upright pose that you'd have when you are in gravity. They've also added the new loot screen. So when you're getting into looting a character or something, you can just get into this loot screen and shift click on the various different items, and shift click will store them. Just normal clicking or left click will equip them into the various different appropriate slots. You can do that for armor, you can do it for weapons, you can do it for stuff in your backpack, all that kind of stuff. It's a great addition to the verses. It's one of my favorites for this patch. They've added some new racetracks. They've added some new Arena Commander arenas that you can do dogfighting and racing in. And of course, Arena Commander is also sporting all of the new changes to master mode. So it's a good place to get in and practice that. Going from the old flight system to master modes has been a little bit jarring, and so very worth getting into Arena Commander and getting some practice. Environmental dynamics has also been added, so we now have water tech and god rays. The water tech now adds real-time physical reactions to thruster wash and I guess air deformation from ships and that sort of stuff, bullet impacts, footsteps, all that kind of stuff. Those have all been added. They are rendered on your client side, and so it's not done on the server per se. It's just done on your client, and I guess on anyone else's client that is within view of you. And then the god rays have been made universally accurate, I suppose you could say, meaning that they are calculated from the sun, and are real-time rendered and physically accurate. They've also added 2 new vehicles. One new vehicle, 2 different variants, the Mirai Pulse. One of them is a racing variant, the green one over here, and it's got a big inlet over here to like a turbocharger essentially. And then they've got the combat variant that's got a laser repeater cannon, or laser Gatling on the front here. Those are available on the store straight to flyable, so you can purchase them for, I believe it's $25 standalone, and they come with lifetime insurance. So a good LTI token if that's something that you guys are interested in. I've picked up one for myself. I'm going to be using that to upgrade to the Hornet F7Z Mark II. They've also added some FPS changes. So we now have a floating crosshair that shows where your bullets are going to impact, as long as you're wearing a combat visor or an appropriate visor. They've added this new mini map as well up in the top left corner, and this allows you to see a real-time view of your environment. They've added backpack reloading. They've added a whole new star map that is very, very nice. It's got search functionality and full interaction and all that. And they've added a lot of stuff in this patch. And then, of course, they've got various different offers and that kind of stuff that you can take a look in. So that's kind of the TLDR. Obviously, it's 7 minutes of TLDR. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the full patch notes here, and we'll take a look at these. And so there was a wipe with the patch. It only wiped Alpha UEC though, so any ships that you had that were properly stored into the long-term persistence database have been kept, as well as any armor, PvP, or FPS weapons, ship components, all that kind of stuff. That's all been saved. The only thing that you should have lost would be the Alpha UEC that you have accumulated in the previous patch. So features and gameplay. We'll go ahead then and take a click into each of these. So the new character customizer has been rebuilt from the ground up and includes multiple new ways to achieve the character look and style you've been dreaming of. This includes multiple new base head models, new hairstyles, new eyebrows, makeup, facial hair, character creation, saving and retrieval, and more. Basically, this allows you to create your character however you'd like it, and then you can save it, so that the next time you create a character, or if you want to change something, you can swap between those characters and then just go ahead and load it right back in the next time you want to play. They've added these distribution centers, and these are quite large locations, creating new traversable areas offering gameplay opportunities in corporate industrial environments. This initial release includes the surface levels of the facilities with many new locations on Hurston and Microtech, and include many new bespoke NPCs, hangars and landing pads, legal and illegal traversal pathways, and more. Currently, underground areas of the distribution centers are coming in a later update. These new distribution center locations will play a major role in cargo when the new cargo lift and personal hangar update is introduced in an upcoming release, but currently come with many new legal and illegal activities that include multi-eliminate all, eliminate boss, and assassinate FPS missions. AI, ship combat improvements, and new fauna. Ship combat AI has become much more formidable in 3.23. With this update, AI ship pilots have been toughened with new behaviors based from real PU combat via collecting data from experienced dogfighters to give them more movesets, allowing them to do strafe runs, new orbits, more intelligent maneuvers and distancing, and much more, blurring the line between player and AI fights. And I've actually encountered some of it, and it's like, oh wow, the AI are actually a little more dangerous now. And then for the new fauna, these are partially run by AI. The Copian is a four-legged hound-like creature that resides in savannas, snow, desert, and cave biomes. This creature is not hostile when alone and will retreat to the nearest Copian if it exists. Although afraid of humanoids when alone, the Copian tends to roam in packs, which will cause the pack to become hostile to creatures they encounter, where they will use their sharp claws and teeth to do multiple melee attacks, which include biting and pouncing at their target. And they're pretty deadly. I think they can do like close to 25% of your health in a single hit. Then you've got the Marok, which is a bird-like creature with a long beak and bat-like wings. It's part of the Boyd objects, birdoid object family with flocking behavior. They're not hostile to humanoids, and their flocks will disperse when approached. The Marok are native to savannas, snow, desert, and cave biomes, same as the Copion, and come in multiple feature colors that suit their environments. Moby-Glass and Star Map reworks, EVA Tier 2, the PIS personal interaction system, and much more. Moby-Glass reworking the Moby-Glass system to use building blocks, which will also allow for easier development of Moby-Glass apps. This update includes completely reworked overall UI, your home screen, along with reworked home, star map, contract manager, Mo Trader, knickknacks, journal apps, and more. About the only thing that didn't change on this one was the communications screen and the vehicle loadout manager. The star map rework, implementing the new and improved star map with improved visuals and usability, including easier search and trip planning functionality. You can click on a location and just tap R on your keyboard to automatically plot a route now. And if you're like on a ground-based location or on an FPS location, you can hit, I believe it's G now, and that will set up a waypoint for you to then map to. The FPS map system, this would be that G key, implementing a mini-map for the HUD as well as interior maps for FPS gameplay, helping players stay oriented in close-quarter encounters. EVA Tier 2, bringing the full Squadron 42 EVA implementation into Star Citizen for the first time. This greatly improved EVA system adds much-needed control, animations, gameplay, and finesse for players traversing zero-G from outside their ships. Animations and traversal, player movement, and position is a completely new experience with Star Citizen 3.23. The first thing players will notice is that they will no longer be vertical while maneuvering and instead be in more of a superhero pose. This pose gives much more flexibility with player maneuverability, rotations, and viewing angles, while also feeling much more natural and overall more aesthetically pleasing to see. From this new pose, players will have full 360 horizontal rotations, while body direction will remain constant until thrusting in a direction. Slower EVA speeds are now enforced in interior spaces, improved strafe maneuverability, made transition between gravity and no gravity more robust. There are multiple new animation poses for no weapon, pistol stocked and shouldered, grenades and consumable use, one- and two-handed items, and Moby-Glass use. Fuel system and consumption. Players will now have a limited EVA fuel in their suits, which makes planning trips into zero-G much more necessary. This adds support for EVA thrusters on undersuit, torso armor, and backpacks in an emergency situation. If a player's suit runs out of fuel, their suit will transfer oxygen supply to thrust when fuel supply is empty, which could be the slight boost needed to survive. Suit oxygen replenishes quickly while in breathable atmosphere. Nitroxy pens will resupply suit fuel and oxygen. The player interaction experience, implementing the updated player interaction experience, a holistic array of complementary features and systems, all related directly to the player. Player status, item status, environment status, as well as interactions with both the game world and the objects within it are covered under these systems. This system includes the visor and lens HUD rework, control hints, helmet equipping and removal, Personal Interaction System, PIS, and Personal Inner Thought, the updated new player experience, and more. The visor and lens HUD rework, converting Squadron 42 player visors over to Star Citizen. The visor and lens systems have now been updated to use building blocks for improved performance and flexibility. This updated system brings much needed user experience updates to adapt on the fly to the player's situation in and out of combat. Helmet equipping and removal. When placed in the world, i.e. not equipped on a character, helmets display nothing on their visor. When a character equips a helmet, the player's lens HUD will shut off and the visor HUD and UI will activate, and an animated UI boot up sequence will trigger and play out. Similarly, when removing a worn helmet, the visor/HUD UI will play a shutdown sequence and transition back to the lens HUD. Personal Interaction System. The Personal Interaction System is the interface the player uses to interact with entities in the world. The primary means of interacting with the environment outside of combat and diegetic UI is through interactions. Dedicated interaction input, F on the keyboard, triggers an interaction on an entity when it is in range and the current focus, typically center of the screen. Ranges, max distance, vary between entities but are typically around 2 meters. An interaction prompt displays to indicate when an object can be interacted with, and it is the current focus. A simple, relatively small UI element displaying the control input required to trigger the interaction and the name of the interaction. Only one interaction prompt displays at a time, as there is only one current focus at a time. Entities can have multiple interactions available at any one time. Other available interactions are available via the interaction wheel menu. You'll reach that by holding F while focusing on an object, and that'll bring up an interaction wheel that'll allow you to pick one of the other options. Interactions typically trigger a player animation for anything the player can carry. This relates to the carryable system and sees a player pick up and manipulate an entity. For anything the player attaches to in order to control, such as a pushable trolley, mounted gun, or a usable seat or bed, this is usually in the form of locomotion, followed by an enter and new idle animation. For anything else, it typically results in the character pushing a button, triggering a corresponding prop animation, or triggering HUD UI. Some interactions trigger synchronized animations with other characters, such as reviving with a med band, body dragging, or placing another character into a bed. A separate interaction mode displays a cursor which, when hovered over interactable entities, allows their current default actions to be triggered, mouse 1, or the interaction wheel to be opened with mouse 2. Personal Inner Thought. The Personal Inner Thought interface has had a complete visual and contextual update to bring it in line with all of our updated systems. The PIT provides an interface to trigger actions possible to the player in their current state, an easy way to check their current input that triggers said actions and easily rebinds said actions, access to the player's personal inventory and the items they have equipped or attached to them. So, Personal Inner Thought is now left Alt plus F. The Quick Select wheel is with mouse 1. Quick Select wheel cancel is mouse 2. Contextual menu is mouse 3. Pages forward and backward, mouse wheel. Contextual menu, mouse 2 for the select wheel, cursor select. Cursor select wheel, page navigation forward, right arrow key, or the menu buttons. And page navigation back, left arrow key, and menu buttons. FPS loot screen, introducing a new screen for looting critical items quickly, allowing for more reliable inventory management in tense situations. With this update, players can rapidly transfer items to their weapon, magazine, consumables, and throwable slots, or transfer all into their backpack. Selecting loot option on a crate will bring up the new FPS looting interface, while opening will bring up the original inventory window. Added a button to the top right of inventory screens to swap between the new and old looting interface. This also works with downed NPCs, and I would assume with downed Copians and Marok and that sort of stuff. Anything that you can loot will now bring up this interface. Physical shopping UI. The way items in shops interact with players. Augmented reality has been updated to give clear and detailed information about the physical item they are browsing. Players will no longer need to hold F when approaching items on store shelves. Looking at an object while close to it, a new augmented reality informational window will appear next to the objects in view with descriptions of what the item does, its stats, price, your current funds, and a new hold keybind to buy option. Basically just hold the F key and you'll automatically buy that. It'll be added to your inventory, local inventory. Reload improvements. Reload improvements have been integrated with Squadron 42 into Star Citizen. This includes many quality of life additions such as ammo repooling and backpack reloading. Reloading during tense situations has been overhauled to allow multiple reload types, allowing players to first reload from their equipment slotted magazines and then from their backpack or personal storage with a bit longer of a search time once those have been exhausted. Implemented similar functionality for quick select wheel from inventory rummaging. This new functionality includes UI on the player HUD to let the player know where their next reload will come from and how many overall munitions they have left in all personal inventories for their currently held weapon. Empty mags will now result in them being tossed away instead of being reattached to your suit. Dynamic crosshair. Combat helmets now support the dynamic crosshair, which will allow for quicker target acquisition in close quarter situations. The dynamic crosshair is a system which allows the crosshair to accurately represent to the player where the projectile will leave the barrel and hit. Unlike most first-person shooters, our projectiles fire from the barrel, and when firing in hit mode, this can make it difficult to judge just where the bullet is going to land. The dynamic crosshair can help combat this issue with moving with the player when they move their mouse input around the screen. For example, if the player should move around the corner of a building, the crosshair will stick to the wall until the entire barrel has moved past the wall and will then appear in the foreground. We want the crosshair to be dynamic to your movement and actions. The crosshair is animated while you move and perform an action to help to demonstrate the amount of spread your movement has on a projectile. Players will have a choice of two options when it comes to the dynamic crosshair: have it permanently off or have it permanently on screen when wearing any combat helmet. Players can decide to toggle the crosshair on and off via the settings options. Combat helmet is required. In terms of the lore of Star Citizen, the crosshair will appear on the player's helmet visor via augmented reality. This means if the player does not have a combat helmet on, they will not be able to use this feature. Taking your helmet off or using a non-combat rated helmet will cause the dynamic crosshair to not display. In the PU, with there being multiple brand manufacturers for helmets, there is an option for the crosshair to change its visible looks based off the manufacturer's design. The crosshair will not snap to different objects since we're trying to add a level of AR realism. The crosshair should be responsive but soft float onto different objects. Hit markers. With the return of crosshairs, we also want to introduce a new hit marker back into the games. Currently, we have a flash setup for the hit markers in the game, but 323 brings this over into building blocks. These hit markers are visible from both the hip and also in aim down sight mode. The new hit markers will have style and sound changes based on body, head, and kill shots. Hit markers are directly tied to the dynamic crosshair, so if the player turns off the crosshair in the options or changes to a non-combat helmet, they will not receive any hit markers for hitting their target. Reputation-based hostility. The current reputation system has been updated so that players can affect their long-term reputation with in-game organizations via means outside of missions, such as reduction of reputation for killing a member of that faction. AI belonging to certain factions will react differently based on their reputation with you. Being an ally provides the player benefits such as more generous friendly fire thresholds and providing medical aid. Being an enemy will mean harsher friendly fire thresholds and may result in an attack on sight. Lawful organizations will not attack on sight as long as they're in a monitored zone, whereas unlawful factions will attack on sight no matter what. This is the foundation which allows players to become allies with in-world criminal factions and enable places like Grimhex to enforce their own laws. Vehicle quantum travel and targeting keybind updates. With 323, we are moving slightly towards the Squadron 42 scheme for targeting. This comes with vast default keybind changes for on foot and in vehicles. Move default binding to enable quantum drive to the left mouse button. So once your quantum drive is spooled and you want to go somewhere, it is now a left mouse button click by default. Long press B to swap master modes. This is from nav to SCM and back. T short press selects the target closest to the crosshair and iterates forward based on crosshair angle. T long press enables and disables auto targeting. It will pick the closest hostile in view based on crosshair angle. R iterates subsystems if available and target with scan based on angle from crosshair outwards. G always swap gimbal mode. E is turret gyro on and off. If you're a turret gunner, that's a good one to remember. Left Alt and R disables sub targeting. Added keybinds to magnify the aiming UI, none set by default. 4 is now target closest ship targeting you and iterate based on distance. 5 is now target closest hostile ship and iterate based on distance. 6 is target closest friendly ship and iterate based on distance. 7 is target closest contact and iterate from there based on distance. Left alt plus B short press sets bomb target. Default binding for turret ESP has been removed but can still be assigned. Ping is now tab, will be the same for FPS when it's ready, and scoreboard is now F1 in Arena Commander. General gameplay updates. Quantum Dampener will now limit ships to SCM speeds. So until you swap to nav mode, you are locked down to SCM speeds, which is somewhere between, for the big ships like the Reclaimer, about 90 meters per second. For light fighters like Gladius and Arrow, it's somewhere between 300. Made it so only jamming will block the quantum drive spooling. Disabled requirement to scan a target before sub-targets are available. And made friendly markers fade out after 50 meters. Weapons and items. FPS salvage tool balance, armistice salvage, and medical gun polish. Salvage standalone tool balancing pass. The standalone salvage tool has undergone a complete balance pass to improve its overall use. Double the range versus the multi-tool. Increase gathering and repair speed. Allows to repair a little higher than normal multi-tool. Loss or less efficient. Higher loss of material when gathering. Allow toggle to fire. Crafting and filler station update. Added the Cambio SRT container empty and full to the filler station's crafting list in the Vulture and Reclaimer. So when you're salvaging now, you can make the little canisters for repair and for hand salvaging. General FPS salvage changes. Allows repair in green zones. Allow gathering to continue with the ammo container being full. The Cure Life medical gun added interact pose, moving the gun close to the camera to make the screen elements more visible. Made the UI elements always interactable. Fixed issue where you could not interact with medgun screen in heal target mode. Ships and vehicles. New ground vehicles. Updated in-game purchasable vehicles. We've added 2 new Gravlev vehicles to Star Citizen in 323, the Mirai Pulse and the Mirai Pulse LX. This would be the racing variant. They've also added the following ships to in-game shops, the Fury MX and Fury LX, which I want to say were purchasable before, although those are the missile and racing variants, so perhaps those have just been added. The Lynx Rover, which is the high-end rover that is comparable to the RSI. I can't remember which one this is. The bigger one. With the 6 wheels. The Hull C has also been added to the shop now, as well as the Spirit A1, Cutter Scout, and Cutter Rambler, which is kind of a longer distance one. The Spirit C1 has also been added. The SRV tow ship, the Storm and Storm AA, those will be the light attack tanks. The Santok Yai, Xi'an medium fighter, and the X1 base, X1 force, and X1 velocity hover bikes. Origin. Freelancer component pass, polish, and updates for Freelancer series to bring it more in line with standards, with additions of component doors, included components, animations, and internal bodywork. So this would be for all 4 of the Freelancer options. Those are used in Squadron 42, so they push those through as well. General ships and vehicles updates. Every ship has had major updates to flight, performance, fuel, and more. For the full details of everything involved with Master Modes, please look in the Master Modes dedicated section of the notes. Heavy optimizations for Anvil Pisces thrusters and visual improvements. And the replication layer. New tech replication layer and server recovery. Replication layer has now been moved off of the game servers and set up as its own standalone service. In the short term, this allows for game servers to recover without disconnecting players, so their progress will not be lost. During a crash, a message will display saying the server is recovering. In this phase, it could take as long as 2 to 5 minutes, so please wait on this to complete, and the replication layer will move everyone to a new server. Of course, your place in the server and everything will be maintained, so as soon as that happens, you're good to go. New tech, the Vulkan Renderer Beta. Vulkan Renderer has now been enabled in Star Citizen. This new renderer will be off by default, but has been added to the graphics settings menu. In this first release, the focus is on hardware and driver issues, stability, and any major performance issues. At this point, we do not expect Vulkan to be outperforming D3D11 on the CPU usage, due to the fact we haven't enabled multi-threading of the rendering submission yet, but do expect GPU performance to be within a 30% margin. Once we have multi-threading enabled, we expect a significant net gain. On the GPU side, we should be closer to parity. Performance improvements and stability improvements will be ongoing throughout 3.23 with the aim to make Vulkan the default and more performant implementation in a following release. In the meantime, we appreciate any and all feedback towards this. Additionally, you may see a few new folders now in Star Citizen's app data folder. These relate to our new graphics settings file, just includes the graphics renderer settings for now, Vulkan shader cache, and Vulkan's pipeline cache. We are currently working with AMD and NVIDIA to improve functionality and compatibility for later driver releases. It is recommended that you update to the latest GPU drivers for this release, but there are still a few known issues that could cause instability and crashes with Vulkan until a later AMD and NVIDIA driver update. If you run into major issues, you may want to swap back to DirectX 11. If the game crashes on launch after switching to Vulkan, you can reset this by deleting your shader folders in local app data/Star Citizen. Vulkan PSO precompiling. With the latest update to add Vulkan, Star Citizen will now precompile all PSOs, the shader cache rendering shaders, for the current quality setting when the game starts for the first time after an update or when graphics settings are changed. This may take up to several minutes, but will prevent any stuttering or hitching of the game at runtime due to PSO compilation in the driver. It is advised to wait until this process completes before jumping into the game. There is a text shown in the lower left. It's kind of green while this compilation is happening, optimizing shaders. Changing the graphics quality settings in the menu will restart this process and compiles all PSOs for the current settings. New tech image upscaling, implementing support for GPU upscaling, including NVIDIA's DLSS, AMD's FSR, and an in-house TSR solution. These include multiple quality and performance settings to test out to see which is best for you. Volumetric Cloud Update. We've updated Star Citizen's volumetric cloud technology to improve overall visual quality and performance, including the addition of both planetary scale volumetric shadows as well as the implementation of ground fog. Multiple new graphics settings for clouds have been added. Photo mode setting provides extremely high visuals and ray marching steps that will give the best possible looking clouds, but at the highest performance cost. Very high updated setting. With recent improvements to the half-res atmosphere and cloud render mode, we've been able to switch to this mode instead of rendering in full res and significantly increase the number of ray marching steps for this setting, resulting in much improved visuals while greatly decreasing the runtime cost on the GPU. I've noticed this myself, Orison. I'm now getting 50 to 60 frames per second running around Orison, which is phenomenal for me. New tech, water simulation and rendering improvements. We've completely reworked the wave simulation and rendering for all water in Star Citizen, in addition to creating a new multi-scale region-based water surface simulation system. Oceans and water volumes are now affected by all physical objects as well as forces from thruster and ship wake. Caustics are fully reworked to be both faster and driven by the dynamic results of the new water simulation. Underwater fog has been reworked to resolve various rendering issues, and the appearance of water when intersecting the camera has been vastly improved. So if you're just walking into the water, kind of that transition. Tobii Accelerated View. Accelerated View enabled for the Tobii eye trackers. Improves field of view control, allowing players to see more with precise head and eye movements. Customized sensitivity in the settings menu. General core tech updates, server performance optimizations, UI performance optimizations, NVIDIA shadow map memory performance optimizations, viz area performance optimizations, physics thread performance optimizations, further polish for planetary effects, visual improvements, and optimizations. Updated the NVIDIA DLSS SDK to 3.7.0, updated Tobii to version 9.0.3.25, and tweaked some Tobii eye tracker defaults. The vehicle combat experience. This covers master and operator modes. This is quite a hefty section as well. Here's a rundown of the major changes to master and operator modes for the newly updated vehicle combat and experience. All spaceships now have a master mode setup. Your ship can be in one of two master modes, nav and SCM. SCM mode is used for any gameplay that is not traversal, meaning going from A to B. Your shields are functional, your weapons work, and salvaging and mining can be used normally. However, your speeds are harshly limited. Nav mode is used for traversal. When activated, your quantum drive will start spooling up, and once completed, you can go very fast, around 1 kilometer per second, or 1,000 meters per second, with your thrusters, and your quantum travel techniques are available to you. Weapons and shields will still be powered and regenerating. However, shields will be ineffective and weapons are not allowed to fire. If your quantum drive gets powered off or becomes distorted, the high speeds will be unavailable. Again, your quantum drive in general is very susceptible to distortion damage, so make sure you are not in danger when entering nav mode. Swapping the modes can be done via hold B, so you don't accidentally swap it, but it will take a few seconds between the mode swaps. You will find an indicator for the currently used nav mode in the top left of your HUD. It also shows a spool time when the modes are being swapped. There are now cockpit operator modes. Operator modes, not to be confused with master modes, change the behavior of your current cockpit dashboard. They have been in Star Citizen, for example, salvage, mining, missiles, guns, quantum travel, for years, but we are now making them very explicit in the UI. In the top left of your flight HUD, you will see a label. The first part of the label denotes the current master mode, nav or SCM, whereas the second part of the label denotes the current operator mode. You can use the middle mouse button to cycle through your available operator modes. Unlike before, middle mouse button will not just change between guns and missiles mode, but between all available operator modes of your dashboard. Specifically for the nav master mode, we also added a generic flight operator mode, FLT, which allows you to just fly around without the quantum markers. Please note that turrets currently do not have an indication about the current operator mode. This will be added with the MFD rework later. Instrument flight control systems, new flight tunings. Due to the inclusion of master modes, a lot of things have changed in IFCS. All ships got an initial tuning pass for master modes. They are currently relatively close to each other. We will roll out more drastic differences in later quarters. Keep in mind that we're starting with a clean slate and that we need your feedback to help shape the tuning correctly. This also means that the typical activities ranging from simply flying over combat to racing will feel very different. Specifically, our racing tracks have not been built with master modes and thus might require some adjustments in the future. IFCS boost. Thruster boosting will now ramp up instead of instantly firing with the full strength. Thruster boost won't be available for a short amount of time after usage. Boost will now also affect rotation rates. The actual increase, however, is dependent on the capacitor assignment. So swapping your power priority to engines will help to provide extra thrusters. IFCS gravity compensation and automatic precision mode. A couple of safety functions have been added to IFCS to keep players safe. Currently, there are no UI indications for their states, as they will be part of the new MFDs, which will ship after 3.23. However, we added keybinds so you can still enable and disable them. Gravity compensation is now enabled by default in coupled and decoupled modes in areas with gravity, independent whether the landing gear is in or out. You will find the keybinds under flight movement at the bottom of the list. They are labeled as gravity compensation. Automatic precision mode enforces a maximum speed limit of 20 to 30 meters per second when your landing gear is out or extending. Later we will extend that to flying within hangars, etc. You will find the keybinds under flight movement at the bottom of the list. They are labeled as automatic precision mode. This can, I believe, also be disabled. IFCS reworked cruise control and throttle trim. The core functionality of cruise control has been reworked to be more like a sticky throttle. Instead of pressing a button and the ship lurching forward with max acceleration, swapping to cruise mode will put the ship into a sticky throttle mode. When you switch to it by pressing Left-Alt-C, IFCS will use your current forward speed as the goal speed it tries to retain. Pressing W or S, or using your main throttle access, you can then smoothly decrease and increase that forward goal speed. To reset it to 0, press or hold X, same button as the space brake. When cruise control is active, your speed gauge will show you a second number that shows the goal speed. Cruise control is not automatically canceled when you swap to decoupled. As an advanced function mainly for dual stick users that use a spring-loaded axis for throttle control, we added a throttle trim function to automatically keep a speed without using cruise control. It works by the pilot setting a certain throttle value, for example 75%, and then pressing the set button. The pilot can then let go of the stick and IFCS will retain 75%. Any further inputs are scaled based on those 75%. The pilot can release the trim by pressing the appropriate button. Our recommendation is to use a long press to set the trim and a short press to release it. There are also additional key bindings that allow you to set the trim to a specific value, 50 and 100% available at this point. This allows you to mimic the old cruise mode behavior. Search for the button binding throttle trim set to 100% under spaceship movement. You can reset the trim by pressing X. Currently, there is no UI for trim. The new throttle widgets for the Q2 release will show it, though. For advanced users, if you want the input axes to reset when you swap into cruise mode, set the following CVAR v underscore ifcs2 underscore input dot throttle underscore mode underscore swap underscore behavior equals 0. Persistent ship settings. We removed a lot of user options in favor of replacing them with persistent ship settings. Certain things like decoupled, ESP, G-Safe, UI gunnery magnification, and a few other things will now be persistently saved for each individual ship. For the time being, you need to use keybinds to change them. For the upcoming MFD rework in future releases, these can all be changed via dedicated MFD screens. Please note that in 3.23.0, these settings will not transfer to your Arena Commander ships and replacement ships, as they are technically new ships. We will, however, add a set of options that will be copied into a newly spawned ship when you sit in it for the first time. That will hopefully come in 3.23.1. Precision targeting, gunnery. Precision targeting is now available on all pilot seats and turrets. You get the most use out of it with gimbaled weapons. On switching to precise targeting, left Alt plus right mouse button for now, the view will scroll in on your current target, and if you've scanned the target, all available sub-targets will be highlighted. Use your crosshair to paint the target at a certain position, and your weapon computer will automatically lead your gimbals to hit the target at the marked spot. Precision targeting will also heavily reduce the fire rates on certain weapons to decrease the spread. Please note that there is an outstanding bug that does not create graphical outlines for sub-targets that are positioned inside of the OC of a ship. Shield generators, etc. will not currently be visible. Gunnery, gimbal modes, and turrets. By default, all ships and turrets are now equipped with gimbals. There are a few exceptions to the rule, for example, when guns have been built into the frame of the spaceship itself, like the nose guns of the Vanguard, the size 7 guns of the Ares, or in general on all Van Duel ships. That means just as with pilots, turret gunners now swap the used gimbal modes with G. In cases where a ship has a mix of gimbaled and fixed weapons, the fixed weapons will not fire outside of the fixed gimbal mode. Auto gimbal mode has been removed for pilots and is now exclusively available to turrets for the time being. Gimbal modes are now also affecting fire rates and, within precision targeting, the spread angles. Fixed modes have the highest fire rate, i.e. the highest DPS output. Turrets do not have a functioning weapon status UI yet. This will be fixed with the MFD rework. The ship loadouts also have been updated. Where possible, the gimbal mount sizes were updated, as from now on, a gimbal of a specific size will carry a weapon of the same size. No N-1 anymore. So if you have a size 4 hardpoint, it will have a size 4 gimbal, and a size 4 weapon can be attached to it. Gunnery pip changes. There are too many changes to the gunnery system to count them all up, but here are the most player-facing ones. Pips are now calculated per weapon and are visibly summarized in groups with the same projectile speed. The more diverse weapons you mount, the more pips will be visible. The following points are persistent options. In 3.23, they can only be changed via keybinds. When the new MFDs release, you will also find them there. Pip grouping allows you to change whether pips are combined or shown for every individual weapon. Gunnery UI magnification will increase the visible size of the pips and the crosshair. Precision lines will give you an indication of how close you need to be on target based on the aim assist and the spread values of the used weapon. Pip fading allows you to set whether the pips fade away when they are directly over the target or too far away from the crosshair. I will have to look into these because that looks like fun. Gunnery aim assist suppression. As a hold button binding, you can disable all aim assists that your gunnery system does for you. While most players won't need this, it might help in the occasional PvP match when pilots use maneuvers that distract the bullet prediction. You can find the key binding under Vehicles, Weapons. It is unbound by default. Gunnery ESP. ESP was reworked to account for existence of multiple pips. We've decided to remove all player-facing ESP options except for a single strength slider. This allows us to tune ESP individually for every ship differently, avoid confusion what the settings mean, and remove potential exploits for PvP environments. ESP is also used during precision targeting, but the ESP point is the ship itself, and the radius is as big as the ship. Gunnery weapon tuning. All weapons in Star Citizen have been retuned and have very diverse characteristics. Since that is a complete diversity pass, there will be certain outliers. Please keep using as many different weapons as you can and feedback to us which weapons work for you and which don't. As a rough guideline, we split the weapons into the following categories. Anti-fighter has high projectile speed, low DPS. Anti-material has low projectile speeds and high DPS. Unspecialized is a jack of all trades that are neither very fast nor very damaging. Specialized are highly specialized weapons such as distortion weapons, scatterguns, mass drivers, etc. Targeting, button changes, and auto-targeting. The targeting system now features an auto-targeting function. You can tell by the shape of the target brackets when it is on or off. Auto-targeting will automatically switch to the next best hostile target in your view. This is useful in a furball or when trying to quickly retarget after chaff is dropped. By default, it is enabled, but any kind of manual targeting interaction will disable it. You can always hold T to enable and disable it. Targeting, sub-targeting. The functionality for sub-targeting has slightly changed. When you press R to enable it, the first sub-target will be the one closest to your crosshair. Further presses on R will then iterate to the next available sub-target based on the angle to your crosshair. After a certain time, currently 0.75 seconds, the order will reset, and your next press on R will again target the sub-target closest to your crosshair. Use left-alt-R to disable sub-targeting. You can tell that sub-targeting is active when the target bracket is not surrounding the ship, but an area of the ship itself. Targeting, button changes, and sub-targeting. T short, reset target in view and iterate. T long enables and disables auto-targeting. R cycles sub-targets and iterates. Left-alt-R disables sub-targeting. 4 resets to closest attacker and iterate. 5 resets to closest hostile and iterate. Head bobbing and look ahead. There were several updates to the head bobbing, which is now reacting a lot more to G-forces and rotational movements. Unintended motions from missing eye stabilization have been removed. The only thing that remains is the slight breathing motion. Due to the legacy HUD layouts in 3.23, where the HUD elements are placed between the dashboard and the player, there is a risk that certain players might get motion sick. In that case, you have the option to freely define the strength of the head bobbing. In the options menu, go to the game settings and set G-force induced head movement to 0. That gets rid of the head bobbing. Look ahead is a small helper where the game tries to help you to look at the direction you might be interested. Certain people might find this jarring as well, so it also can be turned off either by left-alt-L or disabling it in the options. The appropriate options are called pilot, turret, or driver look ahead enabled. ATC cargo transfer request change. To avoid conflicts with look ahead, the keybind for calling ATC has been removed to right-alt-N. G-force induced afterburner zoom. By default, the zoom during boosting is now enabled. When you boost, you will see visual effects and FOV changes. You can change the strength of that via the options. Quantum traveling. Your quantum drive will automatically be spooled once you are in nav mode. To initiate a jump, align yourself with your jump target and long press the left mouse button. Holding B is now reserved for switching master modes instead. FPS combat overhaul. New scopes and sights. Scopes and sights will no longer have blinding reflections on them. Optics now increase aim down sight time, 15% for 1 time and 1 time 3 time, 20% for 4x. However, 8x and above remain the same due to being sniper exclusive with already long aim down sight times. Scopes that are 8x and above will have a glint visible to players when a scope is targeting them. Optic zoom has returned on multiple scopes. Armor will no longer block the player's vision when aiming down sights. Under barrel laser pointers now decrease spread by 12.5%. FPS control keybind updates. Primary secondary weapon is 1 or 2 and can alternate. Sidearm is 3. Unarmed melee is 6. Cycle next previous weapon. Mouse scroll wheel. Change movement speed is now left alt plus mouse scroll wheel. Lean left is Q. Lean right is E, just as it was. Multi-tool and gadget is 5. Consumables, medpen, etc. is 4. Throwables are G. Grenades, that kind of stuff. Equip melee is V. Weapon customize is J. Crouch is C. And prone is left control. I think I'll probably be changing those myself. FPS combat. Overall intention for many combat updates in 3.23 is that the player is slowed down in firefights when committing to a fight, but is still safe to retreat during a fight. Adjustments have been made to make the overall experience more consistent. Weapons should no longer get stuck in the falling pose. Force reactions have been adjusted so FPS weapons will not cause staggers on any weapons. When moving diagonally, players will now use strafe movement values. Body mapping adjusted so shoulder shots will no longer count as headshots. Equipment will no longer block bullets, such as backpack and weapons, that sort of stuff, grenades. Bullets will no longer damage multiple body parts of a singular player, meaning if a shot went through the player's arms and chest, it would damage the same target twice. It will still damage 2 different players, as expected. Naked damage multiplier on the player has been reduced by 50%. Attachments will work with new procedural recoil. Majority of weapons now feature new iron sights. New procedural aim down sight animations on all weapons. Spread has been fully removed from all aim down sights. Some weapons still had it when they shouldn't. Various issues causing hit registration issues have been fixed. Major weapons balance changes. Pistols, S38, damage increased by 50%. Magazine size increased from 15 to 20. New procedural recoil, new iron sights. The LH86 pistol, damage increased by 24%. Recoil adjusted to be more consistent. Salvo frag pistol, damage increased by 6%. Additional pellets and spread increase now interpolates as opposed to needing to be fully charged for additional benefits. Min distance for damage drop from 25 to 30 meters. Min damage increased from blank to near damage cap. So they're missing some text there. Minimum multiplier of charge mode decreased by 41%. Damage multiplier of charge mode decreased by 12.5%. Removed cooldown for firing after a charged shot. No longer causes knockdown or staggers. Arc-light pistol iron sight improved. Coda pistol damage increased by 25%. Min damage increased by 75%. 3-shot mediums, 4-shot heavies to the chest. Uberev pistol damage increased by 90%. Zoom time increased from 0.15 to 0.185 seconds. Rifles, P4AR ammo count increased from 30 to 40. Damage increased by 11%. Recoil adjusted to be more consistent. Aim down sight spread increased from 0.33 to 0.25 seconds. Aim down sight speed increased. Interesting. I think they probably mean decreased there. Removed all spread from aim down sight. Iron sight improved. S71, min damage increased by 75%. Projectile speed increased by 100%. Recoil adjustments are now smoother. Aim down sight time decreased from 0.375 to 0.275. Iron sights are improved. Now defaultly uses iron sights. Gallant energy rifle, recoil adjusted to be more consistent. Damage increased by 27%. Iron sight improved. Projectile speed increased by 100%. Karna rifle, recoil adjusted to be more consistent and overall recoil reduction. Damage increased by 7%. Ammo count increased from 30 to 35. Removed all spread from ADS. Alt fire damage multiplier increased by 100%. Iron sight improved. SMGs. With item blocking being removed, SMGs are now even more powerful as they're typically in close quarters combat environments. To compensate for this, SMG recoil should be more consistent when firing, leading to their range being increased. The P8SC recoil adjusted to be more consistent. Iron sights improved. C54 recoil adjusted to be more consistent. Recoil return to be more smooth. Max spread reduced 66%. Iron sight improved. Magazine size increased from 40 to 50. The C54 sounds like it's going to be pretty dangerous now. Lumen 5 damage increased by 35%. Burst delay decreased by 11%. Recoil overhaul to pull consistently to the left. Max spread reduced by 90%. Iron sight improved. Custodian damage reduced by 11.5%. Recoil made to be more consistent. Aim down sight time increased from 0.156 to 0.2 seconds. Iron sight improved. Min spread increased drastically. Due to the Custodian's higher ammo count, players are holding hipfire down in QCQ as opposed to aiming, which causes the Custodian to be overrepresented in the SMG area. LMGs, FS9 damage reduced by 3.3%. ADS spread has been removed from this weapon, left over from 322. Aim down sight time decreased from 0.44 to 0.4. Spread increased. Iron sight improved. Recoil adjusted to be more consistent. F55 damage increased by 25%. Now fires only after a windup has finished. Fires at full fire rate after spin up. New procedural recoil. Spin up time increased from 0.4 to 0.5 seconds. Spin down time reduced from 0.95 to 0.15 seconds. Spread, min, and max increased drastically. Iron sight improved. Temeko damage increased by 15%. Recoil adjusted to be more consistent. Iron sight improved. Shotguns. Shotguns now, when aiming down sight, have a tighter spread. BR2 shotgun spread reduced. Damage increased by 150%. Minimum damage increased drastically. Aim down sight time adjusted from 0.175 to 0.35. Spread has been changed to a consistent 6. Pellet count decreased from 12 to 10. Iron sight improved. R97 damage increased by 33%. Aiming down sight adjusted from 0.175 to 0.29. Spread, min, and max adjusted for smaller mins and larger maxes. Ravager 212 twin shotgun. Force reaction reduced. Shotgun spread reduced. Damage reduced by 7%. Min damage increased by 380%. New procedural recoil. It will no longer have a barrel offset between shots, meaning you can tap as quickly as possible. This was changed because players wouldn't understand why they had to wait for the barrel to reset before firing again. Devastator shotgun. Damage increased by 26%. Damage range drop-off increased by 300%. Spread tightened, pellet count increased from 10 to 12. Damage multiplier is now 1.35 when fully charged. No longer causes staggers and knockdowns. Pellet count increased by 66%. Aim down sight time adjusted from 0.175 to 0.35. Dead ring damage increased by 80%. Min damage increased by 50%. Snipers. Due to the changes with projectiles no longer dealing damage to the same character multiple times, snipers will no longer one-shot on a body shot, still hits multiple players. Snipers in general now have a more drastic projectile drop. No sniper scopes are able to auto-zero anymore. Zeroing ranges have been adjusted on site. I believe it's now like 50, 100, 250, 500 sort of thing. P6LR no longer causes staggers and knockdowns. Fire rate decreased by 45%. Damage increased by 11%. Fall off adjusted. Will one-shot medium heads until 300 meters. New procedural recoil. Spread adjusted drastically. Aim down sight time increased from 0.45 to 0.55. AO3. New procedural recoil. Damage reduced by 15%. Aim down sight time increased from 0.23 to 0.435. Scalpel sniper rifle damage increased by 5%. Aim down sight time adjusted from 0.23 to 0.4. Projectile speed increased by 105%. Scalpel should now be far more consistent as both projectiles fire at the same time, meaning the recoil position now no longer affects where the second projectile lands. Min damage increased by 125%. The XAR sniper is fast and deadly but cannot deal with targets as effectively over 150 meters compared to the P6LR. ADSCAV sniper rifle, force reactions reduced, damage increased by 20%, projectile speed decreased by 50%, aim down sight adjusted from 0.23 to 0.52, damage drop minimum range increased by increased to 350, spread increased by 50%, arrowhead charge damage now interpolates, charge timer reduced from 2 to 0.5, charge now increases projectile speed by 5 times. Special explosions hit multiple bodies parts, so 5.5 to 10 is still a dramatic increase. Grenade launcher min radius increased from 0.25 to 2. Max radius increased from 3 to 6. Damage increased from 14.2 to 16.5. Railgun explosion min radius increased from 0.75 to 5 meters. Max radius increased from 2.5 meters to 8. Damage increased from 5.5 to 10. Damage to ships remains the same. Grenades. Min radius increased from 0.25 to 3. Max radius decreased from 7 to 4.25. Damage increased by 43%. So grenades should be a little more dangerous, but a little more contained. Arena Commander changes. They've added custom lobbies. Custom lobbies, previously referred to as private matches, makes its return to Arena Commander, utilizing the new front-end and lobby systems alongside new features such as moderation controls. Amongst those new features, this release includes the first of what makes this custom over simply private. Experience the first of our custom settings, including map selection, score limit, time limit, match cycle options, and team switching, allowing players to set up and play matches for any game modes at any time with their own rules. We're excited to expand upon custom settings in future patches. Custom lobbies will follow the same game mode rotation as other network types. Streaming has been enabled across all of Arena Commander. This technology, previously exclusive to the Persistent Universe, allows us to stream in only what is needed in the arena. This change will allow us to streamline our location porting to utilize references to locations rather than copies, meaning if the PU updates, so will Arena Commander. Additionally, streaming will see performance improvements across select maps as we continue to convert them to take full advantage of streaming over the next few patches. Experimental game modes: Resource Network, Free Flight, Squadron Battle, and Duel. 3 limited test experimental modes featuring the engineering gameplay, also referred to as Resource Network, showcased at last year's CitizenCon. Help shape the future of engineering gameplay in Star Citizen by testing and feedbacking to the features and balance showcased in this limited test in Arena Commander before it hits the Persistent Universe. Maps: Miner's Lament, all flight modes, including the recent Master Modes experimental mode test as a high-density, close-quarters dogfighting arena. This unique location allows players to take advantage of asteroids, debris, and more to take full advantage of the lower SCM speeds and outmaneuver your opponents. Skyscraper Classic Race: challenge the skies above Area 18 and conquer the skyscraper by narrowly threading your way through towering high-rises and dense urban sprawl at breakneck speeds. Capian Circuit Classic Race: race through the intricate framework and sharp turns of the Kaplan Industrial Platform, just a short flight away from the August Dunlo Spaceport. The Kaplan Circuit is a rite of passage for all local racers. Download Derby Classic Race. This intense test of skill debuted for 2952's Invictus Launch Week Racing Contest. Do you have what it takes to take a podium place? Lorville Outskirts Classic Race, a sprawling network of interworking cranes, pipes, and industrial machinery lined the winding quarry of this active work site that doubles as the Lorville Outskirts racetrack. Stanton Pyro Jump Point Classic Race, introduced as part of the Master Mode's experimental mode test, this track enters core rotation as our second zero-G racetrack alongside Miner's Lament. Do not be fooled by the clear beauty of the track. This will push your use of the new flight system to its limit in 3 varied splits designed for both SCM and NAV mode. System balance. Character customization. Arena Commander will now utilize your personalized character from the Persistent Universe across all game modes. VoIP has been enabled across all of Arena Commander. By default, in team modes, players will join the team voice chat, while in non-team games, players will join the match voice chat. Additionally, proximity voice has also been enabled match-wide. The speaker icons in the scoreboard can be used to mute players. Gun Rush update. Multiple weapons lists. 323 introduces a great number of weapon tunings and FPS balancing that we couldn't contain in a single Gun Rush weapon list. Players will now experience one of a random selection of curated weapons lists per match. This also allows for activation and deactivation of lists through the patch cycle, so keep checking into Gun Rush as we may rotate them throughout the patch. Online map selection. Map selection, previously exclusive to offline and custom matches, will now be enabled in select game modes, including Free Flight, Classic Race, Grav Race, Pirate Swarm, and Vandal Swarm. By default, any map will be selected. This option is recommended to get matched with other players quickly. Free Flight Ground Expansion. Free Flight, our beloved sandbox mode, has received an update with both Winter's Circle and Bloodshot Ridge maps. With new ground spawners, players can now spawn any ground vehicle they own and drive around with ease in Arena Commander. Plan out your best tank battle scenarios or just take a leisurely Grav stroll across the Lakes of Green. Pirate Swarm update. The Javelins of the UEE response fleet are under routine maintenance. To ensure we keep the Pirate Swarm at bay, the UEE have sent 2 of their latest Idris Capital class frigates to now host the F8 Lightning Squadron as part of the response fleet. Survive until Wave 10 to witness the difference between a fully crewed, fully trained UEE frigate versus the stolen Pirate Idris. Team balance adjustments. After using the previous patches to experiment with different team balancing configurations, we've landed on a simplified version where squads will only be separated in case of extreme team imbalance for fair gameplay. In addition, we've added a new team balancing step to the pregame, which will give players more time to connect before team balancing takes effect. Game mode adjustment. Control removed from core game mode pool. Elimination added to core game mode pool. Elimination may be disabled when certain experimental modes are active, such as team elimination and kill collector. Achievement updates. For a list of all achievements and their rewards, visit the Arena Commander com link at the above link. 2953 Vandal Aggressor. Reach Wave 25 of Endless Vandal Swarm to earn the 2953 Vandal Aggressor Spectrum Badge and unlock access to the Vandal Glaive pledge page. 999th Test Squadron achievement. Achieve this achievement by playing all experimental modes associated with the launch of 323 listed below to earn yourself the 999th Test Squadron Spectrum Badge. This is Tank Royal, Team Tank Battle, Single Weapon Elimination, Kill Confirmed FPS, Kill Confirmed Vehicles, Duo Showdown, Team Elimination, Grav Race, Engineering Squadron Battle, and Engineering Duel. Miscellaneous. Significant performance improvements have been made on the Good Doctor. Awards such as badge, pledge, and item unlocks gained at the end of a match will now display in your comm link notifications. Hit markers and damage indicators against and from a friendly should no longer appear when friendly fire is disabled. Racing scoreboards now display 3 decimal places in the decimal displayed times. Players can now switch between master modes and SCM nav during pregame. Players can now change their power configuration during the pregame. Scoring UI has been converted from Flash to building blocks. Removed auto invites from party hosts upon entering the Arena Commander front end. In Kill Collector FPS, pickup duration increased from 30 to 60 seconds. In most flight game modes, increase the derez time of debris from 8 to 30 seconds. In non-team game modes, team chat channels should no longer appear. In Endless Vandal Swarm, the 2953 Vandal Aggressor badge is now achievable by reaching Wave 25. After utilizing the Join Friend function, you should now match cycle into the same game mode you joined rather than one you had selected before joining. Bug fixes and technical updates. They've fixed various different things. Fixed an issue causing some players to receive a disconnection, 30k, when attempting to enter the PU. Fixed an issue where shops could be missing items off the shelf and in kiosks. Fixed an issue that could cause underground facility elevators to go missing. The Hornet Mark II audio should no longer have placeholder or other ship sounds. Fixed an issue causing many ships to spawn incorrectly at the start of a Marine Commander match. AI should now spawn correctly inside security post-career spawn closets. Fixed an issue causing player heads to go missing. Fixed an issue causing too many AI to spawn during the additional derelict missions. Bounty should now complete correctly after killing the target. Fixed many rock assets have physics proxies that can trap the player in a falling state when walking over them. Fixed some caves have gaps in geometry players can fall through. Fixed an issue causing some assigned hospital room doors from opening. Closed hangar doors of a hangar occupied by a ship should no longer open when another ship collides with them. Fixed an issue causing large client performance drops when flying large-sized ships near planet and moon surfaces. Players should no longer get a something went wrong error code 20 when attempting to get a refining quote. Players should no longer get stuck in bed after loading into PU after recovering from a server crash. Fix 7 client crashes, fix 5 server crashes, fix a server deadlock, and fix multiple backend service crashes. And finally, known issues and information. I know this is a long video. Bear with me or skip around. Known issues and information. For 323 Live, server crash recovery will remove all current missions and mark them as abandoned. This behavior is not the intended outcome in the long term and will be changed in an upcoming refactor. This will not reduce reputation when this occurs. This could cause a few trespassing issues, though, in locations like underground facilities. PU Stanton Grim Hex locations. Active feature. Player corpses will not despawn in Grim Hex. Bunker elevators do not return up when called. There are no female social AI present around Loreville. The ASOP terminals for ground vehicles at Loreville gates get stuck on infinite load accessing list of ships. Misaligned HUD markers with ultra-wide or TSR graphic upscaling enabled. Using a med pen causes you to drop your weapon. Internal transit elevator shows up when called but doors remain closed. No carriage. Rock mining laser is not activating. Transit will intermittently desync off course. Ship warning alert text is very small and can be difficult to read. Can't repair, refuel, or restock at the Pyro Gateway Jump Point Station. This is going to be a problem because that's where Xenothreat is going to be. Security checkpoint elevator, viz area, and missing collision. Objectives can be soft locked by a player leaving bed before their objective record has been updated. Backpack reloading. Weapons reload invisible magazines when reloading from backpack. Unable to activate EMP on the Scorpio Centaurs. Multiple vehicles. Quantum travel effects are breaking the HUD UI. Squadron battle friendlies showing up as enemies. And Grav Race. All maps, low gravity can launch players far above the track when hitting bumps or hills. Alright, so those are the full patch notes for 323 Live. Thank you all for sitting through all of this. I know it's been an extremely long video. If you have any more to add or anything that you found interesting, please feel free to hit me up in the comments. Thanks for all of you who have been watching my videos. I've noticed a drastic increase in player watch time, so thank you for all the time you guys have been putting into watching my videos. And I hope to see you guys in 323. Take care, everyone. Ta-ta.